He stepped in front of flying arrows to save the Star Girl. The reward was worth every scar. The golden gleam of Ryder's armor caught the dying sunlight as he walked through the winding streets of New Olympia, the colony's most notorious trading hub. His exposed arms and legs drew appreciative glances from people passing by, but he paid them no mind. After 5 years as a freelance security expert in the outer regions, he'd learned to ignore such attention. The spaceport ahead buzzed with activity. Merchants and travelers from a dozen worlds haggled over prices and exchanged goods. Ryder adjusted the energy blaster at his hip more from habit than necessity. His real protection came from the reinforced neo-titanium armor covering his vital areas, a gift from a grateful client whose life he'd saved during the Proxima uprising. That's when he saw her. She moved through the crowd like a phantom, her pale blue skin almost glowing in the fading light. The futuristic dress she wore with its dark metal bodice and flowing skirt split high on both thighs marked her as Celestian nobility. Her matching blue hair cascaded down her back in a straight waterfall that seemed to catch every ray of the setting sun. Ryder's enhanced senses, courtesy of his military upgrades, picked up the danger before his conscious mind processed it. A slight movement in the shadows of a nearby alley, the whisper of bowstrings being drawn. "Get down!" he roared, already moving. The Celestian woman turned, confusion crossing her delicate features. Time seemed to slow as Ryder saw the first arrows emerge from the shadows. He didn't think, couldn't think. His body moved on pure instinct honed by years of combat. 3 steps brought him between her and the incoming projectiles. The first arrow struck his shoulder plate, deflecting harmlessly. The second found the gap between plates, biting deep into his flesh. The third and fourth followed in quick succession, each finding its mark in his exposed back. Through the haze of pain, Ryder heard shouts and running feet. The attackers, whoever they were, wouldn't stick around now that their ambush had failed. He turned to the woman, fighting to stay conscious, as blood trickled down his back. "Are you hurt?" he managed to ask. Her azure eyes were wide with shock. No, you saved my life." "Good." Ryder's vision began to blur. "We need to move. They might—" He stumbled, and her surprisingly strong hands caught him. In the distance, he heard the whine of approaching security drones. Too late. As usual, "My transport is nearby," she said urgently. "Can you walk?" Ryder nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure it was true. She guided him toward a sleek vehicle that looked like a cross between a hovercycle and an ancient earth chariot. The design was distinctly Celestian, all curves and flowing lines that somehow managed to look both elegant and deadly. They barely made it. Ryder collapsed into the passenger compartment as the woman took the controls. The last thing he saw before consciousness fled was her concerned face looking down at him, framed by that extraordinary blue hair, as they soared away from the spaceport and into the gathering dusk. His last thought was that he'd probably ruined a perfectly good set of armor for a complete stranger. Somehow, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Ryder drifted back to consciousness gradually, his mind piecing together fragments of sensation. The first thing he noticed was warmth, a soft, comforting warmth pressed against his face. Then came the gentle scent of exotic flowers, unlike anything found on Earth. His military-enhanced senses cataloged each new input while his brain struggled to make sense of his situation. He was lying on his stomach, head turned to one side, resting against something both soft and firm. As awareness crept back, he realized his head was nestled against. Oh. Well, this was unexpected. The Celestian woman he'd saved was sitting beside him, and his head was currently pillowed against her rather impressive chest as she leaned over him, apparently treating the wounds on his back. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, applying some kind of cooling salve that tingled pleasantly where it touched his skin. Ryder kept his breathing steady and his eyes closed, fighting down an inappropriate grin. He'd been in worse positions during his career, though none quite so interesting. "You really are quite remarkable," she murmured, apparently believing him still unconscious. Her fingers traced the edge of one of his scars, an old one, not from the recent arrows. "Such fascinating biology. Your healing rate is extraordinary." Her accent was musical, each word carrying a slight melodic quality that human vocal cords couldn't quite replicate. It was oddly soothing. "The arrows should have killed you," she continued softly. "3 direct hits, yet here you are, already, healing. And you took them without hesitation for a complete stranger." Her hand moved to another scar. "What manner of man are you, Ryder Kane?" "The kind who's wondering how you know my name." He couldn't help himself. She jerked back with a startled squeak that was absolutely not dignified enough for what he assumed was a noble woman, given her attire and manner. Ryder opened his eyes, grinning up at her now furiously blushing blue face. "You're awake," she accused, as if this were somehow his fault. "I have been for a few minutes," he admitted, making no move to lift his head from its rather comfortable position. "Seemed rude to interrupt your fascinating monologue about my biology." Her blush deepened to a shade of blue that shouldn't have been possible. You. She seemed to be searching for the right word in standard. "Scoundrel?" Ryder laughed, then immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his back. "Ow. Okay. Laughing is still off the menu." Her embarrassment immediately transformed into concern. "Don't move too much. The regenerative matrix is still settling." "The what now?" She gestured to his back. "Advanced healing compound. Very expensive, very effective. House Astral's personal blend." "House Astral?" He raised an eyebrow. "Should I know that name?" "I suppose not if you don't follow Celestian politics." She straightened slightly, adopting a more formal pose that did interesting things to her already impressive figure. "I am Lady Lyra Astral, first daughter of House Astral, 3rd house of the Azure Towers." "Ah," Ryder said. "That explains the assassination attempt. It wasn't—" She started, then stopped, frowning. "Well, yes, I suppose it was, though I'm still not certain which of my family's enemies was behind it." "You have many?" "House Astral has been ascending rather rapidly in recent years," she explained. "This tends to make the older houses nervous." Ryder nodded, finally forcing himself to lift his head from its comfortable resting place. He pushed himself up slowly, mindful of his injuries, until he was sitting on what he now realized was an extremely luxurious medical bed. The room around them screamed private medical suite, all gleaming surfaces and advanced equipment. "How long was I out?" "Just over 2 standard days," Lyra replied. "The arrows were coated with a rather nasty neurotoxin. If you weren't human—" She trailed off, then added, "Your species' resilience to toxins is remarkable." "We're stubborn that way," Ryder agreed. He studied her face for a moment. "You've been here the whole time, haven't you?" The blush returned. "I felt responsible. You were injured, saving my life." "Pretty sure that was my choice, my lady." "Lyra," she corrected automatically. "And yes, it was a choice I still don't fully understand." She tilted her head, regarding him with those striking azure eyes. "Why did you do it? You didn't know who I was. I could have been anyone." Ryder shrugged, then winced as the motion pulled at his healing wounds. "Didn't matter who you were. Someone was about to die who didn't deserve it. I was in a position to prevent that. Simple as that." "Simple?" She laughed, a sound like crystal, wind chimes. "There's nothing simple about throwing yourself in front of arrows meant for a stranger. Maybe humans just have different priorities." "Maybe you do," she agreed softly, her hand finding his, fingers intertwining naturally. "Thank you, Ryder Kane. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay." The touch of her skin against his sent a pleasant tingle up his arm. He looked down at their joined hands, tan against blue, and felt something shift in the air between them. "Well," he said, voice rougher than he had intended, "I can think of a few ways you could start." Her eyes widened slightly, pupils dilating in a way that suggested Celestian arousal wasn't so different from human after all. "Oh, do tell." "First," he said, "you can tell me how you knew my name." She laughed again, but didn't pull her hand away. "Your identification chip, of course. Standard medical procedure." "Ah, that's considerably less mysterious than I was hoping." Disappointed? Devastated. Here I thought you'd used some exotic alien telepathy. Sorry to disappoint. Her thumb traced small circles on his palm. Though I do know several other exotic alien techniques that might interest you. The Azure Towers lived up to their name. Ryder stood at the window of his new quarters in House Astral's ancestral home, gazing at the towering crystalline structures that seemed to capture and amplify the light of the system's twin suns. After a week of recovery, he'd been officially hired as Lyra's personal security consultant, a position that came with an impressive suite and an even more impressive view. Admiring the view, Lyra's voice carried a hint of amusement as she entered without knocking, a Celestian custom he was still adjusting to. Their culture had different concepts of personal space. Just thinking about how much these would sell for back on Earth, he replied, turning to face her. His breath caught slightly at the sight of her in traditional Celestian evening wear, a shimmering garment that seemed to float around her like captured starlight. Always the practical human, she teased, gliding closer. Though I suppose that's why Father hired you. Your species has quite the reputation for pragmatism, among other things. He watched her approach, noting how the light played across her blue skin. Your father seems remarkably calm about having a human in such a sensitive position. Actually, he's quite pleased. Lyra stopped just inside what humans would consider personal space. Your actions in saving me proved your worth better than any interview could have. Besides, humans are known for their loyalty. The way she said the word made his skin tingle. Is that all we're known for? Her azure eyes sparkled with mischief. Oh no. There are many fascinating rumors about humans circulating through the noble houses. Your strength, your endurance. She stepped closer, definitely violating human personal space now. Your passion. Ryder's mouth went dry. Sounds like you've been doing some research. Extensive research. Her fingers traced the edge of his jaw, exploring his beard with obvious fascination. Did you know that facial hair is considered quite exotic among my people? None of our species can grow it. Is that why you keep touching it? Partially. Her other hand came to rest on his chest, right over his heart. I'm also curious about your elevated heart rate. Is that a normal human response to proximity? You know damn well it isn't. He growled softly. Her laugh was musical. Such interesting expressions humans have. Damn well. I like that one. The tension between them was electric, but Ryder forced himself to maintain some semblance of professionalism. My lady, Lyra, she corrected automatically. Lyra, he amended. While I appreciate the cultural exchange, I should remind you that I'm here as your security consultant. Yes, you should protect me very thoroughly, she agreed, her fingers now trailing down his neck, from all sorts of dangers, including boredom. He caught her wandering hand but didn't push it away. Your father might object. Actually, he's hoping we'll mate. Ryder choked on air. I'm sorry, what? Oh, did I not mention? Her innocent expression wouldn't have fooled a blind Martian. House Astral has been seeking to strengthen our bloodline with new genetic material. Human DNA is particularly valued for its adaptability and resilience. Father was quite excited when I told him about our chemistry. You discussed our chemistry with your father? Of course. Celestian nobles are very open about such matters. She tilted her head. Does this make you uncomfortable? I've read that humans can be oddly reserved about mating discussions. Ryder ran a hand through his hair, which had come loose from its usual tie. I'm just trying to process the fact that your father hired me hoping I'd mate with his daughter. Well, not only that, Lyra assured him. Your security expertise is genuinely valued. The mating is more of a bonus objective. He couldn't help but laugh. A bonus objective? You make it sound like a military mission, isn't it? Her free hand, the one he wasn't still holding, traced one of his scars through his shirt. You've already taken arrows for me. Surely this is a more pleasant way to serve House Astral. The combination of her touch and her words sent heat coursing through his body. You're going to be the death of me, you know that? Not if I can help it. She pressed closer, her body fitting against his like she was made to be there. I rather like you alive. His last threads of resistance snapped. With a growl, he pulled her fully against him, one hand tangling in her silky blue hair. Her pleased gasp told him all he needed to know about whether he'd read the situation correctly. Last chance to back out, he warned. Her response was to kiss him, and any thoughts of professional boundaries went right out the window overlooking those azure towers. Hours later, as they lay tangled in sheets that somehow managed to be both, silk soft and stronger than steel, Lyra traced lazy patterns on his chest. You know, she mused, there are at least 12 noble houses that will be absolutely furious about this. Only 12? Well, 12 that wanted to arrange marriages with me personally. There are probably more who will be upset simply because you're human. Should I be worried about more arrows? She propped herself up on one elbow, her blue hair cascading over her shoulder like a waterfall. Are you saying you wouldn't take more arrows for me? In a heartbeat, he admitted, though I'd prefer not to make it a regular thing. My brave, foolish human. She kissed him softly. Don't worry. Now that you're officially under House Astral's protection, any attack on you would be considered an act of war. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. She smiled wickedly. This is. The grand ballroom of House Astral shimmered like a faceted jewel, its crystal walls reflecting the light of 1,000 floating luminescent spheres. Ryder stood at attention near one of the towering archways, his new ceremonial armor, a fusion of human military design and Celestian aesthetics, drawing curious glances from the assembled nobility. You're making quite the impression, Lyra murmured as she glided past, ostensibly making her rounds as hostess. Her traditional gown tonight was cut in a way that made his pulse quicken, though he maintained his professional demeanor. Pretty. Sure that's you? He replied quietly. Though I'm also pretty sure half the nobles here want me dead. Only half? You're becoming popular. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, though I suppose that's because the other half are too busy being scandalized by how magnificent you look in that armor. The armor in question had been a gift from Lord Astral himself, a clear statement of Ryder's position within the household. Its design cleverly incorporated elements of his original gear, while adding distinctly Celestian touches, crystalline inlays that caught the light and flowing lines that somehow made the practical combat gear look elegant. Lady Lyra, a silky voice interrupted their subtle flirtation. How progressive of you to allow your security consultant such familiar conversation. Ryder instantly identified the speaker as Lord Orion of House Nova, one of the most vocal opponents of House Astral's rising influence. The nobleman's tone carried just enough venom to be insulting while remaining technically polite. Lyra's smile never wavered. Progressive indeed, Lord Orion, though I find human directness quite refreshing after centuries of noble circumspection. The barb landed perfectly. House Nova was notorious for its political double-dealing. Orion's perfect blue complexion darkened, slightly with anger. Yes, humans are known for their direct approach. His eyes flicked to Ryder, though one wonders if such primitive methods have a place in modern Celestian society. Ryder kept his face neutral, but internally he was impressed by how much contempt the nobleman could pack into a single sentence. He opened his mouth to respond, but Lyra beat him to it. Primitive, she laughed musically. My dear Lord Orion, have you not heard? The Galactic Council just released a fascinating study on human adaptability. Apparently, their primitive methods have resulted in the fastest technological advancement rate of any known species. Not to mention, she added, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that nevertheless carried to nearby listeners, their physical capabilities are quite impressive. The implications in her tone made several nearby nobles fan themselves, while Orion looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Ryder fought to keep his expression professional, though he couldn't quite suppress a small smirk. You seem very well informed about human capabilities, my lady, Orion managed. Oh, extensively. Lyra's smile was pure innocence. In fact, I've been conducting some very thorough personal research. The scandalized gasps from the surrounding nobles were worth every moment of political tension. Ryder watched as Orion's face cycled through several interesting shades of blue before the nobleman managed to excuse himself with rigid politeness. As soon as he was gone, Lyra drifted closer to Ryder. Was that too much? Probably, he admitted, but I enjoyed it anyway. Good. She brushed her hand against his arm in a way that seemed casual but sent electricity through his enhanced nervous system. Because there's more where that came from. The rest of the evening passed in a similar fashion, a delicate dance of politics and provocation. Ryder watched as Lyra masterfully played the noble court, neither confirming nor denying the nature of their relationship, while making it clear that any threat to him would be considered a direct challenge to House Astral. It was well past midnight when they finally retired to their private wing of the palace. The moment the doors closed behind them, Lyra's diplomatic mask fell away. That, she declared, was exhausting. Ryder caught her as she dramatically collapsed against him. You seem to be enjoying yourself. Oh, I was. Did you see Lord Orion's face when I mentioned personal research? She grinned up at him. Though I think we should probably conduct some more. For diplomatic purposes, of course. Of course, he agreed solemnly. We wouldn't want your statements to be anything less than thoroughly accurate. Her laughter turned into a contented sigh as he pulled her closer. You know, there's an old Celestian saying, the sweetest victory is the one that leaves your enemy speechless. Is that why you've been deliberately shocking the noble houses? Partially, she traced the crystalline patterns on his armor. Though mostly I just enjoy watching them try to reconcile their prejudices with their obvious fascination. With you. With me or with humans in general? Both, she smiled wickedly, though I'm not sharing my research data with anyone else. Later, as they lay together in the peaceful quiet of their chambers, Lyra propped herself up on one elbow to study his face. You're thinking too hard. Just wondering if we're being reckless, he admitted. The political situation is delicate enough without us deliberately antagonizing the other houses. My father knows what he's doing, she assured him. House Astral has always led by example in embracing change. Besides, her fingers traced one of his scars. Any house that would reject an alliance with humans based on outdated prejudices deserves to be left behind. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. She kissed him softly. You took arrows for me before you knew who I was. That kind of instinctive nobility is worth more than 1,000 years of careful breeding. Lord, Astral's private study was unlike anything Ryder had seen in his travels across the galaxy. The circular chamber sat atop the highest azure tower, its transparent walls offering a panoramic view of the capital city. But it wasn't the view that caught his attention. It was the holographic display showing detailed genetic sequences floating in the air. You've suspected something was different about House Astral, Lord Astral stated, his deep voice carrying the weight of centuries. Unlike most Celestians, his skin was a darker shade of blue, almost indigo. About why we've risen so quickly in power. Ryder stood at parade rest, acutely aware of Lyra's presence beside him. The thought had crossed my mind, sir. Father, Lyra interjected. Is it time? It is. Lord Astral waved his hand, and the genetic displays shifted, showing two distinct patterns. What you're seeing is the difference between standard Celestian DNA and House Astral's lineage. Notice anything unusual? Ryder studied the patterns, his military-enhanced vision picking up subtle variations. The second sequence seems more adaptable. Precisely, Lord Astral smiled. Because thousands of years ago, House Astral did something, considered heretical at the time. We bred with humans. The revelation hit Ryder like a physical blow. That's impossible. Humans haven't been spacefaring that long. Oh, but they have. Lord Astral's eyes gleamed. Your official history might only go back a few centuries, but humans have reached the stars before. Multiple times, in fact. They simply keep losing their technology in various catastrophes and having to start over. Lyra squeezed Ryder's hand. It's why Father was so pleased when I chose you. He's been planning this for decades, a renewal of that ancient bloodline. The arrows, Ryder said slowly. The assassination attempt. It wasn't random, was it? A test, Lord Astral confirmed. Though the danger was very real, we needed to know if you possessed the same instinctive nobility that marked the ancient human bloodlines. You risked your daughter's life on a hunch? I risked nothing, Lord Astral corrected. I had full confidence in both your abilities and your character. The fact that you're angry about the risk to her rather than the manipulation of yourself only confirms what we already knew. Before Ryder could respond, the study's security system flashed red. A holographic display showed multiple, armed figures approaching through supposedly secure areas. Right on schedule, Lord Astral muttered. House Nova's assassins are nothing if not predictable. Ryder was already moving, placing himself between the door and Lyra. You knew they were coming? Of course. They have been planning this strike. Since the ball, Lord Astral calmly activated several security protocols. They believe killing you will prevent the strengthening of our bloodline. They're wrong, of course, but zealots rarely listen to reason. Father, Lyra protested, you could have warned us. And deny your mate the chance to prove himself again? Lord Astral smiled. Besides, I've seen the security upgrades he's implemented. The assassins are in for quite a surprise. As if on cue, the sounds of combat erupted from the corridor outside. Ryder's modifications to the house security systems had transformed seemingly decorative crystal formations into deadly defensive measures. Impressive, Lord Astral noted as screams echoed through the tower. You've weaponized our own architecture against them. Basic human ingenuity, Ryder replied, drawing his sidearm. Never assume anything is just decorative. Lyra pressed against his back, her own weapon ready. The familiar warmth of her body combined with the surge of combat adrenaline created an intoxicating mix. You know, she purred, watching you turn our ancestral home into a death trap is surprisingly arousing. Focus, he growled, though he couldn't help grinning. We can discuss that later. Promise? Children, Lord Astral interrupted, though he seemed more amused than concerned. Perhaps we could deal with the assassination attempt before planning. The conception of my grandchildren? Both of them had the grace to look embarrassed, though the moment was interrupted by the study door sliding open. The remaining assassins had apparently decided to rush the chamber directly. What followed was a symphony of violence that would be talked about in noble circles for years to come. Ryder's combat training combined with Lyra's intimate knowledge of Celestian physiology made them a devastating team. Lord Astral, for his part, seemed content to watch while occasionally offering helpful suggestions about particularly vulnerable spots in Celestian anatomy. When it was over, Ryder stood among the unconscious, but carefully not dead bodies of their would-be killers, breathing heavily. Lyra immediately pressed against him, her hands roaming his body under the pretense of checking for injuries. Not even a scratch, she declared happily. You're getting better at this. Or they're getting worse at assassination, he countered, pulling her closer despite their audience. The combat high always made him more aggressive, more possessive, and from the way she melted against him, she didn't mind at all. Well, Lord Astral cleared his throat. I believe this proves beyond doubt that our bloodline's strength will only grow with this union, though perhaps you two would like to retire to your chambers to discuss the evening's events? Father, Lyra laughed, though she made no move to extract herself from Ryder's embrace. Are you actually encouraging us to go make your grandchildren? I'm encouraging you to leave before you scandalize the cleanup crew, he replied dryly. Though I wouldn't object to grandchildren as a side effect. The news of House Nova's failed assassination attempt spread through the Azure Towers like wildfire. Ryder watched from their private balcony as noble houses scrambled to realign themselves in the wake of this political earthquake. The morning's twin suns cast prismatic rainbows through the crystal architecture, creating an ethereal display that still took his breath away. Enjoying the show? Lyra's arm slipped around his waist from behind, her body pressing against his back in a way that made him forget about politics entirely. The view's not bad, Ryder replied, turning to face her. She was wearing one of his shirts, the human design garment falling to mid-thigh on her tall frame. The sight of her in his clothing did things to his primitive human instincts that no amount of genetic engineering could suppress. Just not bad? She raised an eyebrow, azure eyes sparkling with mischief. Perhaps I should change into something more formal for breakfast with the High Council. Don't you dare. He pulled her closer, enjoying how she melted against him. Though speaking of the council, must we talk politics now? She pouted, fingers tracing patterns on his chest. The council meeting is in 2 hours, he reminded her, though his resolve was weakening by the second. Plenty of time. Her smile turned wicked, unless you're not up for it. The challenge in her voice triggered something primal in him. With a growl, he lifted her effortlessly, earning a delighted squeal as he carried her back toward their bed. I'll show you what humans are up for. Later, though still with enough time to prepare for the council meeting, they lay tangled together, in sheets that somehow never seemed to wrinkle despite their best efforts. Lyra traced one of his scars, her touch sending pleasant shivers through his body. I have news, she said softly, an unusual note of vulnerability in her voice. Something in her tone made him prop himself up on one elbow, studying her face. Good news or bad news? Wonderful news. Her free hand drifted to her stomach in a gesture that made his heart skip several beats. It seems human and Celestian biology are even more compatible than we thought. The world seemed to stop for a moment as the implications hit him. You're... Yes. Her smile was radiant. Father's genetic predictions were correct. Our bloodlines have merged perfectly. Ryder pulled her into a fierce kiss, pouring all his emotions into the gesture since words seemed inadequate. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, he pressed his forehead against hers. I love you. I know. She smiled against his lips. Though the timing could have been better. The High Council might have opinions about this development. Let them have opinions. His hand joined hers over her stomach, marveling at the miracle growing within. House Astral is about to become even more powerful, and there's nothing they can do about it. Actually, she grinned, that's the best part. According to Father's research, human Celestian hybrids tend to inherit the best traits of both species. Our child will be stronger, faster, and more adaptable than pure-blooded nobles. The other houses won't be able to ignore the advantages. Is that why your father seemed so pleased about House Nova's attack? Partly. She shifted to straddle him, her blue hair falling around them like a curtain. The assassination attempt gives us political leverage, while our child's existence will prove the benefits of human genetic integration. It's a perfect storm. Your father is terrifying, Ryder observed, though his hands were already wandering, over her body again. He is. She leaned down to kiss him. But right now I don't want to talk about my father. The High Council chamber was as imposing as ever, its crystalline dome stretching hundreds of feet above the circular chamber. Ryder stood behind Lyra's chair, his new position as both her protector and mate drawing curious glances from the assembled nobles. Lord Astral addressed the council with characteristic directness. House Nova's actions cannot go unanswered. Their assassins were caught red-handed, their intentions clear. They sought to prevent the strengthening of our bloodlines through human integration. Integration? Lord Orion sneered from his position among House Nova's allies. You mean contamination? Interesting choice of words, Lyra spoke up, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, especially given recent developments. She stood gracefully, one hand resting on her stomach in a gesture that drew gasps from the assembled nobles. I wonder, Lord Orion, would you call my child, heir to both human strength and Celestian nobility, contaminated? The chamber erupted into chaos. Ryder tensed, ready for another attack, but Lyra's hand found his, squeezing gently. This was a different kind of battlefield, and she was in her element. The child's existence proves what House Astral has long claimed. Lord Astral continued once the initial uproar died down. Human genetic compatibility offers our people unprecedented opportunities for advancement. My grandson or granddaughter will be living proof of this truth. And what of tradition? Another noble demanded. Our bloodlines have remained pure for millennia. Pure? Lyra laughed musically. Perhaps you should study your history more carefully. House Astral's strength comes from ancient human bloodlines, carefully preserved through generations. We simply chose to reinforce those traits directly. She gestured to Ryder. and I would say our choice has been vindicated rather spectacularly. Ryder fought to keep his expression neutral, as dozens of noble eyes studied him with new interest. He could practically see the political calculations happening behind their jewel-toned eyes. The weeks following the High Council revelation brought changes that even Lord Astral hadn't fully anticipated. Ryder watched with a mixture of amusement and concern, as previously hostile noble houses suddenly discovered an intense interest in human culture. The Azure Towers had become a hub of human-Celestian interaction, with nobles practically tripping over themselves to secure human genetic partnerships. It's like watching a mass courtship ritual, Ryder observed from his position in their private garden, where he was conducting his morning combat exercises. The physical activity helped him deal with the stress of constant political maneuvering. Lyra reclined on a crystalline lounger, ostensibly reading reports but mostly watching him move through his training routine. Her pregnancy had only enhanced her natural beauty, adding a subtle glow to her blue skin that drew his eye constantly. "You should see my messages," she laughed. "I've received 16 formal requests for detailed information about our compatibility methods." Ryder nearly dropped his practice sword. "They want what?" Apparently, some houses are concerned that traditional Celestian courtship might not properly appeal to human sensibilities. Her smile turned wicked. "They want to know exactly how I managed to seduce such a prime human specimen. Is that what happened?" He raised an eyebrow, moving closer to her lounger. "As I recall, you were the one who couldn't keep your hands off my beard." "Pure scientific curiosity," she defended, though her fingers were already reaching for said beard as he leaned over her. "Besides, you're the one who carried me to bed like some primitive warrior." "Primitive, am I?" His voice dropped to a growl that he knew affected her strongly. "Strange. I don't hear you complaining about primitive human methods when we're—" A discreet cough interrupted what was about to become a very unprofessional moment. They turned to find Lord Astral's chief security officer, Commander Solaris, standing at attention. "My apologies for the interruption," Solaris said, though his expression suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "But we've detected unusual movement patterns among House Nova's remaining allies." Ryder straightened immediately, warrior instincts taking over. "What kind of patterns?" "Multiple small groups converging on various points around the towers. They're trying to be subtle, but they're nobles attempting subterfuge," Ryder finished. "Precisely." Solaris's lip twitched. "However, their target isn't what we expected. They appear to be focusing on the new human diplomatic quarter." Lyra sat up, all playfulness gone. "They wouldn't dare attack official human representatives. Unless they're desperate," Ryder mused. "The political landscape is shifting too fast for them to adapt. They might see attacking humans directly as their only option for preventing further integration. Then we need to stop them." Lyra stood, her hand instinctively moving to protect her slightly swollen belly. "We can't let them threaten everything we've built." "You're not going anywhere," both Ryder and Solaris said simultaneously. "I'm pregnant, not invalid," she protested. "You're carrying the future of both our species," Ryder countered, pulling her close. "Let me handle the physical threats while you manage the political fallout." She melted against him despite her annoyance. "Fine, but be careful. Our child needs their father. Always am." He kissed her deeply, not caring about their audience. "Besides, I have extra motivation to come back safely now." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Ryder coordinated with Solaris's security forces, positioning them to intercept the suspected attackers while maintaining the appearance of normal activity. The challenge wasn't just in stopping the attack, it was doing so in a way that would maximize the political advantage for House Astral. "Remember," he briefed the security teams, "we want them alive and able to confess. This needs to be clean and undeniable." The actual operation went off with surgical precision. Ryder led one of the strike teams personally, his enhanced strength and combat training proving decisive in subduing the would-be attackers without serious injury. The sight of a human warrior moving with such controlled power seemed to demoralize the hostile nobles completely. "You don't understand." One of the captured nobles spat as Ryder secured his restraints. Humans are dangerous. Your species breeds too quickly, adapts too easily. If we allow this integration to continue, pure Celestian bloodlines will disappear. Entirely. Ryder crouched down to meet the noble's eyes. You're right about one thing. Humans are dangerous, but not in the way you think. We're dangerous because we see possibilities where you see threats. We adapt because we embrace change instead of fearing it. Pretty words from a primitive species. This primitive just outsmarted and outfought your entire conspiracy, Ryder pointed out mildly. Maybe it's time to reconsider your definition of advancement. The aftermath of the failed attack created exactly the political storm House Astral had hoped for. Ryder returned to find Lyra already capitalizing on the situation, her pregnancy somehow making her even more formidable in noble politics. The timing couldn't have been better, she purred later that night as they lay together in their chambers. Nothing convinces nobles like a combination of fear and envy. Fear of humans? He traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Fear of being left behind. She snuggled closer, her body fitting perfectly against his. They saw how easily you defeated their best warriors. Now they have to choose, adapt or become obsolete. You're starting to sound like your father. And you're starting to think like a noble. She lifted her head to kiss him. We make quite the team. We do. His hand moved to rest protectively over their growing child. Though I have to admit, when I took those arrows for you, I didn't expect the reward to include reshaping an entire society. Disappointed? Her azure eyes sparkled with mischief. Never. He pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite their different species. Every scar was worth it. The azure towers shimmered with unprecedented brilliance as the twin suns rose on the day of the convergence ceremony. Ryder stood at the highest point of House Astral's ancestral home, watching as delegations from both human and Celestian worlds arrived in vessels that turned the morning sky into a dance of lights. Nervous? Lyra's voice carried its familiar, musical lilt as she joined him, her advanced pregnancy making her movements more deliberate but no less graceful. Her ceremonial gown, designed to showcase both her condition and her status, caught the light in ways that made her seem to glow from within. Should I be? He pulled her close, one hand resting protectively over their child while the other tangled in her blue hair. It's just a small gathering of every important political figure from two species coming to celebrate our union and impending parenthood. No pressure. She laughed, the sound still sending shivers down his spine months after their first meeting. And to think it all started with you taking a few arrows for a stranger. Best decision I ever made. He kissed her deeply, enjoying how she melted against him despite their formal attire. Though I'm still not entirely convinced your father didn't arrange the whole thing. Would it matter if he did? Not even slightly. His enhanced senses picked up their child's movement, a strong kick that made them both smile. Some things are worth every scar. The convergence ceremony itself was a masterpiece of political theater. Lord Astral had outdone himself, transforming the Great Hall into a living artwork that celebrated both human and Celestian cultures. The crystal architecture pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that mimicked human DNA helixes, intertwining with Celestian genetic structures. Ryder stood proudly beside Lyra as representatives from both species signed historic cooperation agreements, the sight of former enemies like Lord Orion now eagerly pursuing human genetic partnerships would have been amusing if it weren't so significant for both their people's futures. Your species continues to amaze us, a high-ranking Celestian diplomat commented during the celebrations. We thought humans primitive when you first reached our stars, yet here you are, teaching us new forms of evolution. We prefer to think of it as collaboration, Ryder replied diplomatically, though he couldn't help adding, though I suppose taking arrows for your women might seem primitive. On the contrary, the diplomat smiled, gesturing to where several human Celestian couples were dancing. It shows an admirable dedication to protection and sacrifice, qualities we're learning to value more highly. Later, during a quiet moment in their private garden, Lyra shared news that made the day even more momentous. The medical scans confirmed it, she said, guiding his hand to a specific spot on her belly. Twins. A boy and a girl, both showing perfect genetic integration. Ryder felt his heart skip several beats. Twins? Is that even possible with cross-species breeding? Apparently, human genetic adaptability is full of surprises. Her eyes sparkled with joy and mischief. Father is absolutely delighted. 2 heirs instead of 1, both carrying the strongest traits of both bloodlines. I love you, he said suddenly, overwhelmed by everything she'd brought into his life, both as his mate and as the mother of their children. And I love you, my primitive warrior, she teased, using what had become a term of endearment between them. Though I expect you to take just as many arrows for our children as you did for me. Every single time, he promised, pulling her into a kiss that spoke of all their shared adventures and future possibilities. The celebration continued long into the night, but Ryder and Lyra slipped away early, retiring to their chambers where the real future of human-Celestian relations was being forged, not through politics or ceremony, but through love, trust, and the unbreakable bonds between 2 people who had found each other across the stars. As they lay together later watching the moons rise through their crystal dome ceiling, Ryder reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that first moment of instinctive protection to now, expecting twins who would help reshape 2 civilizations, every step had been worth it. What are you thinking about? Lyra asked softly, tracing one of his scars, the one from the very first arrow he'd taken for her. About reward, he replied, pulling her closer, and how sometimes the best ones come with scars. She agreed, snuggling into his embrace. Though I think we've proven that humans and Celestians have much more to offer each other than just scars and rewards. We have indeed. He placed his hand over their growing children, feeling their strong movements. We have indeed.